She pointed at the door and called me a leech in the house I paid for. Every mortgage payment, every tax bill, every repair for 15 years. And somehow I was the burden. My name is Richard Collins. I'm 68, a widower, 38 years an HVAC technician. Before I retired, and on that Saturday afternoon, standing in the living room I built with my own hands, I heard my son tell me to leave. "Dad," Ethan said, looking at the floor instead of me, "my wife and her parents come first now. If you can't accept that, maybe it's time you left." Nobody spoke. A dishwasher hummed in the kitchen. A lawnmower buzzed next door like it was any ordinary day. I looked around that room one last time. The stone fireplace I'd built after retiring, the oak shelves I'd cut and stained myself, the hardwood floor under my son's feet, every inch of it paid for with my money and my hands. "I understand," I said. No yelling, no speech, just that. Then I picked up the bag I'd already packed and walked out the front door. I hadn't always expected this. I raised Ethan believing family wasn't measured in money. That's how my own parents raised me, working. People from outside Dayton who never had much, but always knew where they belonged. After my wife Linda died of breast cancer 7 years earlier, Ethan was the one who kept me going, sitting with me on the back porch, drinking coffee, listening to stories he'd already heard 100 times. Then he met Amanda, energetic, ambitious, and for a while genuinely good for him. When they got engaged and wanted a house in a nicer Columbus suburb, the math didn't work. Student loans, wedding debt, a mortgage lender who wasn't impressed by dreams. Ethan came to me one evening, embarrassed. I didn't make him ask twice. I covered the down payment, the closing costs, and when the bank suggested keeping the title in my name until they stabilized, everyone agreed it made sense. Only temporary, Amanda had smiled. I believed her. I set up automatic payments from my retirement account and never mentioned it again. That's what family does. For a couple of years, it really was wonderful. Sunday dinners, barbecues, Christmas mornings. Then Amanda's parents, Gary and Sheila, retired nearby and started staying longer. Weekends became weeks, became drawers of their own in the guest room. Gary had an opinion about everything, the paint, the landscaping, and always said, "Your house," to Ethan, never once to me. Sheila didn't need to be rude. She just acted like I wasn't there. If I spoke, she kept talking over me. If I cooked, she ordered takeout. If I mentioned Linda, she changed the subject. The first real wound came when I found a framed photo of Linda missing from the mantle. Amanda had packed away every picture of her. Wedding photos, family portraits. All of it boxed in a closet with the Christmas decorations. Because she wanted the house to feel cleaner. I carried one box to my car and cried harder that night than I had at Linda's funeral. Not because the photos moved, because someone decided her memory didn't belong in the home she helped build. After that, I became Ethan's dad to the neighbors instead of Richard. Gary gave house tours like he'd swung a hammer himself. I overheard Amanda tell a friend in the backyard that they really needed Richard to give them more privacy. Her friend asked if I even lived there. Sort of. Amanda laughed. I went home and stared at my bank statements. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, all still coming out automatically. Year after year, I almost canceled it that night. Instead, I told myself families go through rough patches, that Ethan would notice eventually. But Ethan was changing too, though. It happened so quietly that I didn't realize it until it was too late. It wasn't one dramatic moment, it was a slow shift. Like watching the shoreline disappear as each wave quietly steals another piece of sand. Whenever Amanda wanted to spend Thanksgiving with her parents, that's exactly what happened. If Gary made a cutting remark about me, Ethan stayed silent. Those moments of silence eventually became more painful than any argument we could have had. Everything finally unraveled over something that seemed almost meaningless. Amanda announced that she wanted to turn my old garage workshop into a home gym. That workshop wasn't just another room to me. I'd spent years working there, fixing things, building projects, and keeping the tools I'd collected throughout my life. Still use that space, I said as calmly as I could. Gary let out a laugh. "You don't need all those old tools anymore." Amanda folded her arms across her chest. "We need the room more than you do." I quietly reminded them that I had paid for that garage with my own money. Her expression changed instantly. "You've been living off us long enough," she snapped. "You're nothing but a leech." Those words hurt. But what happened next hurt even more. Ethan, the little boy I taught to ride a bicycle, the son whose college tuition I gladly paid, the young man whose first home I helped make possible, looked straight at me and said that if I couldn't accept that his wife and her family came first, then maybe I should leave. I actually laughed, not because anything about it was funny, because I couldn't believe those words were coming from my own son. Without saying another word, I packed a small bag, walked out the front door, got into my truck, and drove away. For the first time since Linda passed away, the house with our family name on the mailbox no longer felt like home. A few miles down the road, I pulled onto the shoulder, wiped the tears from my face, and called my attorney. Daniel Mercer had handled Linda's estate after she died and had also taken care of all the paperwork when I bought the house years earlier. He wasn't flashy or dramatic. He was honest, straightforward, and spoke in plain English, something I appreciated after spending 38 years repairing furnaces for people who loved using words bigger than necessary. The moment I walked into his office, he looked at me carefully. "You look exhausted," he said. "Start from the beginning." So I told him everything. I didn't leave out my own mistakes. I admitted that I should have spoken up years ago instead of swallowing every insult just to keep everyone else happy. Daniel quietly opened a file that already contained every important document connected to the property. The warranty deed, the mortgage records, every monthly payment, property taxes, insurance documents. Every single record pointed to the same conclusion: my name, my money, my responsibility. Looking across the desk, Daniel said calmly, "Legally, Richard, this house has always belonged to you." I already knew the truth. Ethan and Amanda had been living in that house because I had chosen to let them, not because they had any legal claim to it. Daniel closed the file and looked at me. "So, what do you want to accomplish?" I took a deep breath before answering. "I don't want revenge," I said honestly. "I just can't keep supporting people who treat me like I'm nothing more than a burden." He nodded, understanding exactly what I meant. Then he carefully explained every option available to me. I could continue paying for the house and let everything stay the same. I could ask them to move out. I could draft a formal lease agreement and charge them rent. Or, if I was truly ready to move on, I could put the property on the market. For the first time in a long while, my decision came without hesitation. I want to sell it. Daniel didn't try to change my mind. Instead, he simply nodded and began discussing the next steps. As I drove back to the extended stay apartment I had rented, I expected guilt to follow me all the way there. I thought I'd question myself or wonder whether I was making a terrible mistake. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't happiness. It was simply the quiet feeling that comes from finally making a choice based on self-respect instead of fear. Linda used to tell me, "You can't keep pouring into everyone else's cup after your own has run dry." For years I heard those words without truly understanding them. That evening, sitting alone in a small apartment with nothing but a suitcase and a few personal belongings, I finally understood exactly what she had meant. 3 days later my phone rang. It was Ethan. He sounded cheerful, almost carefree. "Dad," he said, "Amanda's parents surprised us with a vacation to Hilton Head. We're leaving tomorrow." He talked about restaurants, beaches, and how excited everyone was. What he didn't ask was where I was living. He never asked if I was doing okay. He never apologized for what had happened. When the conversation ended, I sat quietly for several minutes, hoping that maybe the trip would give him time to reflect. Maybe distance would help him realize what had happened between us. Instead, social media answered that question for me. Every morning brought another smiling picture: Amanda relaxing on the beach with a colorful frozen drink, Gary proudly grilling seafood outside a vacation rental, Sheila laughing beneath an oversized sun hat, Ethan smiling with his arm around Amanda as if nothing in the world had changed. The captions were even harder to read: "Living our best life. Family always comes first. Making memories with the people who matter most." Photo after photo showed 6 happy people gathered around waterfront restaurants, sunsets, and vacation attractions. Not once did my phone buzz with a simple message asking whether I was alright. For a few minutes, I allowed myself to feel the disappointment. Then I closed the app. Feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to solve anything. I had work to do. Daniel introduced me to an experienced real estate agent named Melissa Harper. From the moment she walked through the property, she treated it with genuine respect. She noticed the careful maintenance, the solid craftsmanship, and the years of attention I'd invested in keeping the house in excellent condition. Preparing it for sale became my new routine. I hired professional cleaners to make every room shine. I filled old nail holes and touched up the paint. I trimmed overgrown shrubs, refreshed the flower beds, and repaired the deck railing that I'd postponed fixing for months. Working beside a handyman young enough to be my son, I found myself smiling more often than I had in years. It wasn't because I was selling the house. It was because I was finally moving forward instead of simply enduring life. 4 days later, Melissa called, unable to hide her excitement. "I've never seen anything quite like this," she said. 23 showings in just 24 hours. By the weekend, 8 offers had arrived. 2 of them were all cash offers. I could have accepted the highest bid. Instead, I chose the offer that felt right. It came from a young married couple, a schoolteacher and a firefighter who had spent years renting apartments while dreaming of a place where they could someday raise children. Along with their offer, they included a heartfelt letter explaining how much the home meant to them. I read it once, then again, and then a third time, as I held Linda's wedding ring, which I still wore on a chain around my neck. I smiled softly. "I think you would have loved this family," I whispered. The closing date was scheduled for the Friday before Ethan and Amanda were due to return from vacation. Before everything became official, I drove through the neighborhood one final time. Children were riding bicycles along the sidewalks. Neighbors were mowing their lawns. The maple tree Linda and I had planted years ago stood tall in the front yard, stronger than ever. I stopped for a moment, took one last look at the life we had built together, quietly said goodbye, and drove away without looking back.